Okay, so a few videos ago we looked at how computers see string, and I said that it sees it as a collection of letters. And so we had the string, and this is the collection of letters that it saw. And we also saw that, it sees the first letter as position 0, second letter as position 1, and so on. Now in computer programming, there's a concept called an array, and the way we describe strings, like this, is very close to an array. Now in Python, there's 3 different types of things that fall under the word array. There's lists, sets, and tuples. But we will only be looking at lists in this class. And so the ways that a list differs from what we saw up here is that we just need to write square brackets around a collection of things. So here, collection of things is collection of letters. And if I put this into a variable called names, then this names is data type list, which holds strings. Right? Each one of these are strings, and the whole thing is a list. But let me just change these so that they're actual names to make it a little bit more clear. So I'll say that the first name is Alex, second name is Bobby. Okay, and so say that these 5 people are your classmates, right? So this is a list of classmates. And we can print the variable names to see what is going to happen. So here it just prints that list out. And you can see that it also contains the square brackets and the quotation marks and the commas. So it's kind of ugly, right? Like, why would I need to work with this? Well, just like with strings, when we had this thing as a string, we could have called string, for example, index of 1, and that will print the letter H. And we can do the same thing here with our list of names. So if I want to call the first name, or index 0, I will call names, square bracket, 0, and then square bracket again. And this will return just Alex. So we can ask for specific names with specific indexes using these square brackets. And you can of course have other lists. So here I have a list of numbers, and here I'm calling the index 3, or the 4th item in that list. So I'll get 400. And you can also construct lists of mixed data types. You can just say Alex, that is a string. You can have 10 as the integer and 10.3 as the float. I can call all of these, and I will get all of them. Now lists, just like creating files, I mean, they're nice, but they are nicer when we can loop through all of them, right? So why would I repeat the same line of code here when I can just print all of them with a loop? And so if you remember when we first looked at for loops, when we had for I in range 6, and then I said print, I don't know, let's just say I, then I said what's happening here is that range 6 is really just a list of numbers 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, not including 6. And then I just takes on the value of every single one of these numbers from left to right. Right? So in our first pass, I is 0, so we print 0. Second pass, I is 1, so we print 1, and so on. So instead of looking for range of 6, which just gives us a list, we can just put another list in here. So for I in mixed list, we can just iterate over I, and here mixed list is just Alex 10 and 10.3. That means that I will take on the value of Alex first, then 10, then 10.3, and that is what we get at these last 3 lines. Or I can just feed names into it. So for I in names, we'll print I. Now let me just get rid of all of these to make it a little bit more clear. Okay, so sometimes when we have lists and we loop through them, we sometimes need to know which values we are currently at, right? So we need to know the index. And so the for loop isn't the greatest at that, so let's have a look at a while loop. How can we loop through all of these using the while loop? So I'll say while some condition, and print, I want to print the names at a specific index. But remember, while is a condition loop, so we need to have a condition. And our condition here will be while index is less than, well, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 elements in here. So index is less than 5, but we have to initialize index. Index is 0. But I also have to increment our index inside of our while loop. Otherwise, this condition would never be false. So index plus equals 1. So this will do the same thing. So we got from Alex all the way to Ed. And so in this case, we can print out the indices and the names. So for example, if I do an f string, so I can say something like this, index dot names of index. And here I just get 1, 2, 3, 4, or 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then I get the different names. But for this while loop, so it's good that we now know the indexes. The bad thing is that we need to tell the computer how long our list is, right? Like what if I add another name here, like Frank, then this would need to change. So we'd need to go back into the code, change it, and then release the code. So how can I deal with this? Well, we know that we can use the length function here, and we can just put the length of names. So while index is smaller than the length of names just returns number of elements in here. So this will now always work, no matter how many elements you have in your list, right? Even if I have 2, we just print those out. And we can combine this the length of names, the length of our list, with a for loop. So I can just say for I in range of the length of names, and then I can print I. And so the cool thing about lists is that we can actually change any of these positions. So say that Dan wants to be called Daniel, then I can just say name, and then, well, 0, 1, 2, 3. So Daniel's on the 3rd index. So name 3, or I guess names 3, is equal to Daniel. And then let me just print names, and you'll see that it's changed the name. And so here you can see that Dan is now called Daniel. Now, how do we add another name to here, right? Like if I wanted to add George to the list, I cannot just say, well, George would have been at the 6th position, and then say George. And if I print names again, you will see that George has not been added, and actually we get an error. So what we have to do instead is we'll have to say names dot append George. And so this will add George to the list. So appending means to add something, and here you add him to the end of the list. Okay, and so now we just have to insert the name Harry at the 2nd position, but we put the 2nd position, or I guess the index 2, so really the 3rd position. We put the index where we want it first, and then what we want to put there. And so if I print this now, we will get what we wanted. Now we can also remove items from lists using 2 different commands. The first one is using the command remove, so names.remove, and here we will say what we want to remove. So I can say George, and you can see that George was removed. Or I can specify an index, but to delete based on index, I have to use the delete function. So I say del, then I say what am I deleting? Well, names, and then let's just say I want the 3rd index removed. And then if I print my names, then you can see that I got rid of Cletus. And that is because I'm removing index 3, not position 3, right? So index 3, 0, 1, 2, 3. Cletus is index 3. Now, at this point, you might be panicking. How can you remember all of these methods? Well, on a test, I will give you a list of methods and their functions. And if you are interested in what the list would look like, you can go to this website, or I can open it right here for you. And so you'll be given this massive list. Half of these you will not need. Really, the list is massive. It contains some complex methods that just by their names you won't know what they do. And even if you read the descriptions, you might not know what to do. For example, the encode method, like what does that do, right? And so usually those ones you will not need. The ones that I will require and the ones that your homework questions will require are things that you can kind of get the meaning of them just by the names, right? So intuitive things. For example, things like insert, append, remove, sort, find, index, lower, upper, and more. So here I'll just quickly throw this list in here. These are some of the more common ones. Is lower and is upper is just a conditional. It returns a true or false, and it's going to tell you that yes, everything is lowercase or everything is uppercase. Min, max usually is used for lists of numbers, and that is going to just return the lowest value in the list, right? So if you have a list of numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, minimum will just give you 1, maximum will give you 5 because it's the maximum value. Now let me just remove all of this to make it a little bit more tidy, and let me just add another list called student numbers, and we'll say that is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, and so using two different lists, you can actually join lists together or concatenate them together. And so if you say combined list is equal to names plus student numbers, and then you want to print combined list, then here you will see that your combined list is just one big list comprising of both of these things. Now sometimes this is useful, sometimes it's not useful. Sometimes we want to join a list together, but we want to join it more like an Excel sheet. We want to join it like a two-dimensional thing. But I will touch on two-dimensional lists a little bit later. Anyway, I think a few videos ago we also saw string slicing. That is, if you have a string of like 5 characters, you can just slice a few characters off. And so you can slice a list here as well. We can slice this combined list by saying so combined list is equal to combined list but 0 through 3. And then if we print combined list afterwards, you can see that it only kept the first 3 items. And you can get fancy with this. You can also do every second, right? So combine list from 0 to 10, but every second. So here we get Alex, Cletus, because Cletus is the second. Then we get Ed, because it skips 1. Then skips Frank, we get 1. Skips 2, and then we get 3. Okay, and if you're not sure about this notation here, you can just refer back to one of the for loop videos when we talk about range, because this applies to the range function. Now, we also have another thing with lists called in, and so we can say if Bobby is in names, we can print found, otherwise print not found, right? And so this just allows us to test, is a certain thing found inside of our list. And if you want to know the location where Bobby is found, then you can say names.index, and you can say Bobby, and this will return the index of where Bobby is found. So index of 1, right? 0, 1. So that's it for this video. It is a lot to take in. In the next video, we'll talk about how you can pass lists into functions or lists out of functions. And then we'll go over our two-dimensional arrays. So yeah, that's it for this video.